100 million members. That's how many people belong to the Chinese Communist Party right now. But only 7 of them actually run China. 7 people at the very top making decisions that affect 1.4 billion lives. Getting from the bottom of that pyramid to the peak takes decades, strategic patience, and the ability to survive inside one of the most controlled political machines on earth. The climb starts in places you've never heard of, in villages where the party secretary might be the only official anyone ever sees. Level 1. Village Party Secretary. This is the foundation, the absolute bottom rung of formal party power. You're responsible for a few thousand people in a rural community where the biggest concerns are crop yields, irrigation, land disputes and local order. The village committee handles administration, but the party branch holds the real authority. Since the one-shoulder poll reforms, those roles are often merged. You're both village head and party secretary at once. The work is unglamorous. You organise meetings about water distribution. You explain new agricultural directives to people who've been farming the same way for generations. You collect fees nobody wants to pay. You settle disputes before they become instability. You're implementing policy, not making it. Most village secretaries never go any higher. They serve their time, retire at 60 and disappear into the local bureaucracy. But for the ambitious few, this is where the system first studies you. Can you follow orders? Can you manage people? Can you avoid scandal? Can you keep the village quiet? Everything gets reported upward. Township sees it. County sees it. Your file starts here. And what you're really learning is the first law of party power. Authority in China is never just about the official title. It's about networks, favours, information flow, and knowing which superior actually matters. Level 2. County Gatekeeper. This is the first real filter. Most careers die here. Now the scale changes. Instead of one village, you're overseeing dozens or hundreds. Instead of a few thousand people, maybe several 100,000. Budgets start to matter. Economic performance starts to matter. Stability matters even more. Can you attract investment? Can you boost local GDP? Can you execute directives from above without triggering unrest below? This is also where credentials begin separating people. By the 1990s, the party had started professionalizing its cadre system. A bachelor's degree stopped being impressive. You needed more, a master's, a better university, a resume that signalled administrative seriousness. Officials started collecting degrees while working full-time because advancement increasingly required proof that you could operate inside a modern governing system, not just a rural one. And the statistics are brutal. Where you start shapes where you end. And officials who begin higher in the system because of elite education, family background or early placement hold a massive long-term advantage. If you begin at village level, you're already climbing from behind. So you need something else: movement. The party tends to reward officials who rotate across domains. Local government, party apparatus, state enterprises, sometimes central ministries. The higher you go, the less the system wants a specialist. It wants a survivor who understands how all the pieces connect. Level 3. Provincial survivor. Now you're no longer just administering, you're surviving elite scrutiny. At this level, you're operating in cities, prefectures and provinces where the stakes are far higher. The metrics get larger, the rivals sharper, the consequences more permanent. Economic output, infrastructure delivery, political reliability, internal discipline. A mistake at village level irritates a county supervisor. A mistake here can end a career that took 20 years to build. This is where lateral movement becomes strategic. One post in rural development, another in urban governance, another in party discipline, another in a coastal growth hub or a troubled interior province. Every transfer adds experience, visibility, and new patrons. Every success makes you look more versatile. Every scandal, however small, becomes a permanent threat. And this is where the rules begin changing around you. For years, competence, broad experience, and careful movement mattered more and more. But after 2017, one factor started started mattering again above almost everything else: proximity to Xi Jinping. Officials tied personally to Xi began advancing faster into the Central Committee, the Politburo, and beyond. The system that had become more procedural and at least somewhat more merit-based shifted back toward personal loyalty. If you're a rising provincial figure watching this happen in real time, the message is clear: performance still matters, but alignment matters more. Level 4. National Insider. Now you've entered the national structure. The Central Committee is where provincial stars, senior military figures, major state enterprise leaders and top party administrators enter the broader ruling class. A few hundred members selected every 5 years through the party congress, though the real decisions are made long before the public vote. At this level, you're no longer just governing territory, you're inside the national succession machine. Reaching the Central Committee means you've survived for decades. You've built a reputation strong enough to be noticed in Beijing without becoming threatening enough to be eliminated on the way up. You're important now, but not untouchable. Visible, but still expendable. This is one of the most dangerous levels in the system because you're close enough to real power to taste it, but still far enough away to be sacrificed. A corruption probe, a failed patron, one wrong factional read, and 30 years of careful climbing can collapse in a month. Level 5. Politburo Contender. Now you're in the room where national power starts to narrow. The Politburo has around 24 members. These are the senior figures who govern major provinces, supervise key institutions, shape central policy, and form the pool from which the very top will be chosen. If the Central Committee is the ruling class, the Politburo is the shortlist. At this level, raw competence is assumed. So are credentials. So is discipline. What matters now is trust, positioning, and whether the people above you can imagine you at the summit without seeing a future rival. You need the resume, the alliances, the timing, and increasingly, the right personal relationship with the top leader. By now, you've spent decades learning how to speak in controlled language, how to produce results without looking too independent, how to build influence without exposing ambition too early. The climb becomes less about hard work and more about calibration, knowing exactly how much capability to show without making someone above you nervous. And if you make it here, you still haven't made it. Level 6. Standing Committee. This is the summit. 7 people. These 7 sit above everyone else in the party and above the state itself. They control personnel, policy, security, budget, propaganda, military direction, and the broad strategic future of China. On paper, they govern through collective leadership. In practice, that has depended on who holds the top seat. Under Xi, collective leadership has become far more concentrated and far less collective. Standing committee members are formally ranked. General Secretary first, Premier next. Then the senior figures who oversee legislation, political consultation, discipline, and other core portfolios. But titles only tell part of the story. Real power depends on who controls appointments, anti-corruption machinery, agenda setting, and the loyalty of the wider system. Selection is opaque by design. Under Mao, the process was naked personal rule. Under Deng, retired elders bargained behind closed doors. In the decades after, it became a hybrid of factional negotiation, internal consultation, and elite consensus. Under Xi, the balance has shifted again towards centralization around one dominant figure, which means that reaching this level now requires more than competence, more than experience, more than a perfect file. It requires entry into an inner circle that has become increasingly personal, increasingly narrow, and increasingly difficult to penetrate from the outside. And if you want to see what a full climb looks like, you look at Xi Jinping. He began at the bottom, though not by choice. In 1969, during the Cultural Revolution, he was sent to Liangjiahe village in Shanxi province as a teenager after his father had been purged. He lived in a cave dwelling, hauled coal, carried manure, and worked alongside peasants in one of the poorest corners of the country. This wasn't the launch of a political career, it was punishment. But he kept applying to join the Communist Party, rejected repeatedly, accepted only after persistence that later became part of his political mythology. Once inside, he became village party secretary, The lowest rung of the ladder. From there, the ascent was methodical. Tsinghua University in 1975. Then a deliberate return to grassroots work in Hebei. Then county leadership. Then a long climb through Fujian, where he spent 17 years building administrative experience and political relationships. Then Zhejiang, then Shanghai, where he was sent in to stabilize a major scandal, then the Central Committee, then the Politburo Standing Committee, then in 2012 General Secretary. 38 years from village secretary to the top of China. What made that climb possible was the combination the system rewards most: bloodline, endurance, narrative, and timing. He was a princeling, the son of a revolutionary veteran and former vice premier, which meant his family name still mattered after rehabilitation. But bloodline alone wasn't enough. Plenty of princelings never reached the summit. She also had something politically invaluable: a story. He could claim genuine grassroots hardship, years spent in rural deprivation, and a bottom-up understanding of the country that many elite rivals lacked. That became part of his legitimacy. He also accumulated what the system rewards: regional experience, party credibility, anti-corruption positioning, elite allies, and eventually something even more decisive: the ability to rewrite the rules once he reached the top. And that's what makes the current ladder different from the one she climbed. He's changed it, centralized it, made it more personalistic and less institutional. The old model still matters: credentials, rotation, discipline, economic performance, provincial success. But now all of it sits beneath a more basic question: are you trusted by the man at the summit? That's what makes the mathematics of this system so brutal. 100 million members. A few thousand rise to meaningful county-level leadership. A few hundred become nationally relevant. Roughly 24 sit in the Politburo. 7 dominate the state. Your odds of reaching the top aren't just low. They're effectively zero unless you begin with advantages most people will never have: the right family, the right university, the right mentor, the right province, the right timing. And even then, you need 3 decades of careful moves, 0 catastrophic mistakes, and the survival instincts to navigate a system where one scandal, one factional shift, or one loss of favour can turn a rising official into a warning to everyone below. But the machine depends on the dream. It needs village party secretaries believing loyalty and competence might still be enough. It needs county officials working 80-hour weeks to hit growth targets. It needs provincial leaders implementing directives they may privately question. The possibility of advancement, however distant, keeps the hierarchy functioning. Most will never leave the lower rungs. A few will climb and make the compromises each new level demands. 1 or 2 in a generation will reach the Standing Committee and help govern a fifth of humanity from sealed rooms where no cameras are allowed and no real minutes are kept. And that may be the darkest part of the ladder. The closer you get to the top, the less power feels like leadership, and the more it feels like controlled proximity to one man, one network, one center of approval. In a system like this, power is never really owned. It's held on condition, and the same machine that lifts you for 30 years can erase you in 30 days.